Well, at least it's still a 4:3 aspect ratio. This video is made in partnership with Hasselblad, and they very kindly let me take this beaut of a camera for a spin. So I'm the first to admit this is massively outside of my usual content. I usually look for tiny, budget, affordable cameras, and this is massive, luxury, premium camera, to say the least. Why have I took on this project? Well, I'm a camera nerd, and if I had the opportunity to take this out and see how the other half lives, so to speak, I'm just gonna jump at that. So this is the Hasselblad X2D2. It sounds like it should be in Star Wars for a start. What makes it so special? Well, the size of the sensor. It's absolutely incredible. I'm going to put it away before I break it. It's obviously bigger than full frame. In terms of micro four thirds, it's 2.5 times the width. Mega four thirds? The image quality is an absolute delight. Uncharacteristic of me, I'm going to not edit any of the photos that you see in this video. If I do, I'll say on screen that I've edited it or show you a before and after, because the real gem and the real point of this camera is that the colours are accurate, straight out of camera, looks stunning, and you don't have to do much. The colours on this are very, very pleasing indeed. I took this camera on a client job recently. I was doing some behind the scenes content for an urban sketch workshop. So here are some real world photos. I think it's done a blooming great job. Why it was great in particular for this sort of job is I didn't want to get in the way of people and didn't want to get into anyone's faces. So having 100 megapixel resolution where I can punch in on the details of people's drawings and sketches really is worth its weight in gold. And also, because it has so much dynamic range, I'll get into the specs a little bit more shortly, as long as I didn't clip any highlights too dramatically, I knew that I could pull all the details back later. So with the 100 megapixel sensor, one huge thing that a lot of people do with this camera is reframe in the edit. And that whole concept is completely alien to me, to be honest. With the cameras that I'm used to shooting, yes, I can straighten a horizon, I can punch in a little bit, but the absolute magnitude of how far you can punch in on these photos, because the sensor is huge and you've got all of that resolution, but perhaps more importantly, because the lens is just so pin sharp throughout, you can punch in ridiculously. And it's such an alien but fun thing for me to play with, because I am so used to getting it right in camera, or try my best to. And obviously I think as a photographer, that's the best way to work. You know, you want to try and get it right in camera as much as possible. But if you're in a situation where you might want different compositions, there's a ton of different ways that you can use this technology. It makes you very lazy. On day 3, I was just like, pow. There was a dog that started walking towards us and I was like, don't even need to get a zoom lens. I'll fix this later. I'll just crop it. So it's good, but it can make you lazy as a photographer. So what else is cool? The stabilisation. I saw the spec of the stabilisation before I tried the camera, and honestly I went into it a little bit smug, because micro four thirds cameras are the absolute best when it comes to stabilisation. On my OM system, OM3, for example, I could do 7 seconds plus handheld without breaking a sweat. So when this was like, oh, the stabilisation's amazing, I was like, it's amazing for such a big sensor. It's not going to be actually amazing. But then I tried it. I got the world's biggest ND filter. I think it's 86 millimeters. And look how silly that looks compared to what I usually shoot with. Handheld, long exposure, seconds upon seconds upon seconds. It made me do that. It made me speechless. It's unbelievable. This is not good stabilization for a large sensored camera. It's good stabilization in general. I've used full frame cameras that aren't as good in terms of stabilization than this Hasselblad. I don't know how they've done it. It's magic. The official amount is 10 stops of stabilization. I have no idea how to quantify that, except to say in the real world, you can handhold it for seconds on end and it works just fine. Massive for nerds? So what about low light performance and dynamic range? Well, given the size of the sensor, you would hope that this would be a plus point, and it is wonderful. It's astounding, actually. You get 15.3 stops of dynamic range in the raw files, which is ridiculous. And in the real world, that means you can recover your highlights, pull up your shadows dramatically in all kinds of different environments. Between that and the 100 megapixels, it kind of makes it a little bit idiot-proof. You could probably throw the camera up in the air and accidentally fire a shot off, crop in and recover the highlights and the shadows. It's unbelievable. I think, again, you know, as amazing as this technology is, it's always best to compose and get your settings right in camera and not rely on all this extra wiggle room. And you can get great low light results with any camera as long as you know your camera settings and you know the best techniques. But this really does just make it idiot proof. I think aesthetically it's beautiful. It toes the line between like futuristic and minimal and classic. I think it does everything very well. I love the orange shutter button. I think that's so striking. And there's an OLED display at the top, which gives you all of the information you need. It just feels comfortable. I like the textures. You do pick this up and go, bloody hell. This is like the real deal. Every single thing is incredibly well thought out. The one thing I don't like, and goodness, imagine me criticising a Hasselblad, is the blooming proprietary neck straps. I'm so far into the Peak Design Anchor ecosystem that having to use this strap was a little bit restrictive to me because it's quite short and I don't like it, and it's hard to take off quickly. I think you can buy adapters to turn these into normal ones, but I'm afraid to look at the price of the accessories. So I'm persevering so far. I've got okay. Now, straight out of camera, the low light is stunning, but Hasselblad also have their own proprietary noise reduction software. You can have the Focus app with a PH. It's available on Apple, Android, and also PC and Mac. And you can run their noise reduction software on these images, and it does do a damn good job, to be honest. The whole app situation on your phone or on the Mac, it's really good. You can get everything done with that software if you want to. And it's in that software that you can put the cute little borders around and say, hey, I'm shooting a Hasselblad. Another thing that's really cool on this camera is the continuous autofocus and subject detection. Now, this is the first medium format camera I've ever used, so I don't know how bad comparatively other models are, but I will say I went into this assuming that it would feel dramatically different than any other camera, and the autofocus and subject detection just works like anything else. Like, we had little dogs running towards us and it was fine, and it was just so interesting to think, like, I went into it thinking it would be a little bit harder to wrangle because the sensor's so big, but it's just so blooming intuitive. And something I've noticed but isn't important, but I love it anyway, the shutter sound. It's so satisfying. Let me get this for you. Oh, listen to that. Oh, it sounds so good. On the back, you have a joystick, which I've actually been using quite a lot because even though I have small hands, it's in a very sensible place. Or you can just use the touchscreen, which is really responsive as well. Given how expensive it is and how premium it is, I was expecting it to be like an overwhelm of settings and options and everything, and it's the most stripped back, intuitive menu system I've ever blooming used. You can't really change your color profiles, you can't shoot video. There's so little that you can mess with, but it's just all works so well. There's no learning curve. Instead of having dials and buttons, you've just got an M button on the top, and then you can go between auto, manual, aperture, and shutter speed, and it's just lovely. And did I mention that there's a terabyte of storage built into this, which is unbelievable? But you can also use the CF Express as a backup, which I've been doing. And, oh, even the doors, it's just so nice. It's one of these cameras that you just pick up and just play with because it's gorgeous. But I have to say, elephant in the room. Elephant-sized camera in the room. It is blooming massive, right? It reminds me of when I used to shoot weddings a lot, and I'd rock up with a full-frame camera body and a really nice f1.4 prime lens. And in terms of sort of the body and the lens, that is about the size and the form factor that I would run around with all day. Is it comfortable? No, it's not the first camera I would choose to like use as an everyday carry camera, could you imagine? But it's special and it's not as hard to lug around as I thought. It's not too bad. Am I going to be shifting into these massive cameras? full-time? Absolutely not. But for client work, and spoiler, in a month or so, I'm going to Iceland for some landscape photography. I'm going on holiday with my dad again. I'm so excited. And I'm going to take that because I think that's the perfect use case, you know, getting really sharp, crisp, pristine landscape photos. Oh, I'm going to show you that. Pricey for nerds. And one thing that I need to delve in more, honestly, is the HDR features on the Hasselblad. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had loads of sort of preconceptions around HDR. I think about phone images, I think about stacking images in Lightroom, and this HDR is not that. The way that it works in the Hasselblad is it just does a HDR effect off one image, and it uses all of those 15.3 stops, did I say? 15.3 stops, which was definitely in my head and not on my notes, of dynamic range. And it just boosts the bright stuff and really adds in the contrast into these images in not like an over-the-top phone way, in a really nice Hasselblad-y way. And what's great about it is the screen on the back is actually a HDR compatible screen. And I will need my notes for this because the spec is stupid. It's a contrast ratio of 2 million to 1. So you'll be able to take a photo in the HDR mode and see it on the back of your camera, transfer it onto the app and edit it on your phone or on your HDR compatible machine. Unfortunately, my computer monitor isn't HDR compatible, which is why I've not shown anything in this video. And the viewfinder is so immersive. The flagship viewfinder that I've ever used is the OM System OM1. And actually, just, you know, to give OM System the due, that has the same amount of pixels, just short of 6 million pixels in the viewfinder. But what makes it different and better on the Hasselblad is it has a magnification ratio of 1. And the number that's closer to 1 is how you see it through, like, your eyes. So when you look through the viewfinder, it's not smaller, it's just like looking through glass. It's stunning. And the OM System OM1 Mark II is 0.83. Do you know what? I didn't need my notes for that. It is 0.83, which is brilliant and a flagship-worthy EVF, but the Hasselblad is, of course, even better, as you'd expect for the price. I came into this very open-minded and very anticipating of fangirling, and I definitely did that because it's just way out of my usual experience with cameras. Like, to me, like, the S9 is a premium camera, the OM3 is a premium camera, the S1 II that I'm shooting on now is a very, very premium camera. This is in another solar system comparatively. So it was very, very interesting for me to see it. You absolutely can see how people go to Hasselblad and then never return. Because if you do a certain type of photography and you want a certain finesse and fidelity to your images, it really is unbelievably great in terms of image quality. Now for me, as you probably know if you've ever seen this channel before, I value portability. I value being able to take it to a festival and get a base build on it. I value getting the most out of cheaper equipment, and this is very much not cheap. But as a camera nerd, I just thought, I've got to give it a go. And I'm just so glad that I did. It's been such a great experience. It is worth the hype. I could never afford one myself, but it is blooming worth the hype. What do you think? Do you think that these cameras have a place? I mean, I just think like anything, you know, super yachts exist because people have that much money to spend on them. And just because the average person like me couldn't afford one doesn't mean that somebody else can or can't. So yeah, they do have the place. And I love the idea of making a camera with no compromise. Like, you can tell that all the equipment is as premium as it can be. You can tell the design is just as premium as it can be. And it's just like, it's nice. There's not a single thing that I could pick fault with, aside from the camera strap lugs, which I'm sure Hasselblad will be able to live with. So I hope you found this interesting and entertaining, and I'm not going to be changing my channel name anytime soon, but what a wonderful experience this was.